1965. Small town in Pennsylvania called Apollo. Somewhere between 200 and 600 pounds of weapons-grade uranium went missing. To put that in perspective, you need roughly 33 pounds of highly enriched uranium to build a nuclear bomb. This was enough for nearly 18 bombs. The US government investigated, the CIA investigated, the FBI investigated, the GAO investigated. 4 different presidential administrations were briefed. No one was ever charged. No uranium was ever found. And to this day, the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world believe they know exactly where it went. This is the Apollo affair, and it might be the most consequential nuclear theft in American history that you've never heard of. To understand this story, we need to go back to the early 1960s. America is deep in the Cold War. The Soviet Union has the bomb, China is about to get it. In a small Middle Eastern country, just 15 years old, Israel is quietly, desperately trying to get the bomb too. Israel had a good reason to be afraid. Surrounded by hostile neighbors, no strategic depth, a small population, nuclear deterrence wasn't ambition, it was an existential policy.
Suspicion, hatred, mistrust. The greatest problem today is mistrust. Mistrust produces terror, and each side blames the other side. So it's a machine that works for itself, and we have to bring it down.
Do you think that having a Palestinian state alongside Israel is possible?
I think it's the only thing which is possible in order to bring an end to terror, violence, and hatred. They've discovered and built 2 new things. A new agriculture, which is based on high tech, and we produced our own weapons to defend ourselves.
But there was a problem. Building a nuclear weapon requires fissile material, highly enriched uranium or plutonium. Israel had very little domestic uranium, and the world's nuclear powers weren't exactly lining up just to hand it over. So Israel had to do what intelligence agencies do. It looked for another way in. A company called NUMEC, the Nuclear Material and Equipment Corporation, based in Apollo, Pennsylvania, population around 2,000 people, quiet town on the Gilinsky River, the kind of place you'd drive through without stopping. NUMEC processed highly enriched uranium under contract with the US government. Think of it as a specialized factory, taking government-supplied nuclear material and fabricating it into fuel elements and components for the Navy's nuclear submarine program and NASA. The man running NUMEC was named Zalman Shapiro. Zalman, by all counts, was a brilliant man, a chemist, a patriot, both to the United States and deeply to Israel. He was a lifelong Zionist and had strong personal and professional ties to senior Israeli government officials. He also had a contract to build nuclear-powered generators for Israel, meaning Israeli government officials had an entirely legitimate reason to visit his plant. In September 1968, FBI and Atomic Energy Commission's documents record a visit to the NUMEC facility by 4 Israeli citizens. One was identified as an Israeli scientific official. Another was a Shin Bet agent, Israel's internal security service. A third came from the unit called Lakem, the Israeli intelligence bureau specifically dedicated to collecting scientific and technical intelligence abroad for Israel's nuclear weapons program. And the fourth, a man named Rafi Eaton. You may not know that name, but if you follow spy history, you should. Rafi Eaton later became infamous as the Israeli handler who ran Jonathan Pollard, the American naval intelligence analyst who spied for Israel through the 80s, one of the most damaging espionage cases in U.S. history. In 1968, Eaton was there at NUMEC. His presence was approved by the Atomic Energy Commission on the assurance that he was a, quote, chemist. He wasn't a chemist. Now here's where the story gets truly extraordinary. NUMEC kept losing uranium. At first, the government assumed it was what the industry called MUF, material unaccounted for. In nuclear processing facilities, small amounts of fissile material genuinely do get lost, embedded in walls, equipment, or waste streams. It's a known problem. But NUMEC's losses in material weren't just small amounts, they were catastrophic. Audits kept turning up discrepancies. Hundreds of pounds of highly enriched uranium were simply gone. The Atomic Energy Commission told the FBI not to open a criminal investigation. They said it was probably just bad bookkeeping. The FBI, to their enormous frustration, stood down for a decade. Then in 2009, the FBI released a document that would change everything. It was a statement from a former NUMEC employee. This person describes arriving at the plant's loading dock one night in early 1965. There were armed strangers there, people he didn't recognize. They were loading metal canisters onto a truck. He saw the shipping manifest. The canisters were labeled as containing highly enriched uranium. The destination? A Zim Israel shipping line vessel, a ship bound for Israel. The employee reported what he saw to a NUMEC manager. He was told to forget it or else. The most damning evidence didn't come from an eyewitness, it came from physics itself. Israel's nuclear weapons facility is located in the Negev desert, near a town called Dimona. It's officially a research reactor, but everyone in the intelligence community knows it's Israel's nuclear bombs factory. In the 1990s and 2000s, environmental sampling was conducted near Dimona, picking up trace particles of nuclear material in the air and soil around the facility. The samples contained highly enriched uranium, enriched to about 97.7% purity. Now here's what makes that number significant. According to physicist Roger Mattson, a former senior official at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the 1960s, there is exactly one facility in the world producing uranium enriched to that specific level, a plant in Portsmouth, Ohio, the same plant that supplied NUMEC in Apollo, Pennsylvania. The uranium near Israel's bomb factory had an American fingerprint, specifically a Pennsylvania fingerprint. One unnamed U.S. official quoted it in a declassified document, put it simply, "The good news is that Israel definitely has the bomb and can take care of itself. The bad news is that the stuff came from Pennsylvania." So what happened when all this reached the highest levels of the U.S. government? In February 1976, CIA Deputy Director Carl Duckett personally briefed senior staff at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. His condition? According to those present, the CIA believed Israel had diverted highly enriched uranium from NUMEC and used it for their first nuclear weapons. President-elect Jimmy Carter was briefed. His National Security Advisor's staff reviewed the evidence and concluded the CIA's case was, quote, persuasive though not conclusive. The irony? Carter ran on nuclear non-proliferation. It was a cornerstone of his foreign policy, and yet, documents released later show his administration worked to keep the NUMEC story suppressed. The GAO launched an investigation. They were stonewalled. The CIA and FBI refused to hand over key documents. The GAO concluded they simply could not determine whether a diversion had occurred, not because the evidence wasn't there, but because they weren't allowed to see it. Investigation after investigation, agency after agency, all reaching the same wall. No charges, no persecutions, no answers.
Ask yourself why. Who benefits from this staying buried?
There's a final chapter to this story that rarely gets told. Apollo is still dealing with the consequences of NUMEC today. The plant site is heavily contaminated with radioactive material. Decades of nuclear processing left the soil, the building, and potentially the surrounding area saturated with radioactive waste. Residents near the site have reported elevated cancer rates for years. The Department of Energy has been slowly working through the cleanup. As of 2025, a major remediation project is finally scheduled to begin, with an estimated completion time of 6 years. The people of Apollo didn't sign up to live next to a nuclear smuggling operation. They didn't get a say. They just got contaminated. So what do we actually know? We know that hundreds of pounds of weapons-grade uranium disappeared from a Pennsylvania factory in the 1960s, enough for multiple nuclear warheads. We know that Israeli intelligence agents, including a man later confirmed as a spy handler, visited that facility. We know that an eyewitness saw uranium being loaded onto a truck bound for an Israeli ship. We know that uranium matching the isotopic fingerprint of that facility was found in soil samples near Israel's nuclear weapons complex. We know that the CIA's own deputy director told the government he believed Israel stole it. And we know that every administration from Johnson to Reagan found reasons not to pursue it. Here's the uncomfortable truth about the Apollo affair. It's not really a mystery. The evidence points in one direction with remarkable consistency. The mystery is in silence. Why did America's most powerful institutions look away? The answer almost certainly lies in geopolitics. Israel is America's, quote, closest ally. Publicly accusing an ally of nuclear theft and the theft of an American origin material at that would have been a diplomatic catastrophe. Better to look away, better to bury it, better to let a quiet Pennsylvania town absorb the contamination and never ask too many questions. The Apollo affair is a story about what governments decide is worth knowing and what they decide is worth forgetting. Things like this are still happening to this day. If you want to go deeper on this, and I highly recommend you do, the primary sources are all publicly available. The National Security Archive at George Washington University has the declassified CIA and FBI documents. Victor Gilinsky and Roger Mattson investigations and the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist are essential readings. The Foreign Policy Investigation, What Lies Beneath from 2015, lays out the isotopic evidence in detail. This isn't just a fringe theory. The people asserting that diversion happened, including a CIA Deputy Director for Nuclear Intelligence, a former NRC Commissioner, a former CIA Station Chief in Tel Aviv, and multiple congressional investigators. The uranium is out there. The bombs it may have built are out there. The only thing that isn't out there is accountability. If you found this interesting, please like and share. This story deserves to be heard.